My name's Amanda Needham, and I'm the managing director of the Telly Awards. I am super excited to welcome you all to the sixth Through Lines event of our season, the Future of Branded Digital series. We are going to have an awesome discussion today with some incredibly visionary humans at the forefront of building entertainment first digital shows. But before I begin, a little housekeeping. So, throughout this conversation, we're going to talk for like 25 to 30 minutes about how they're doing what they're doing. But if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, however you're joining from. So you can drop them into the LinkedIn or Instagram. And then at any point, towards the end, we'll sort of pull all those up and make sure we answer them. And then there's also a QR code on the screen. So if you'd like to get any, sometimes we talk about sort of resources or things that happen. If you'd like any follow-up around anything we talk about over the course of the conversation, you can snap that QR code and I'll be sure to send an email with anything that we mentioned that you might want to dig deeper onto. So without further ado, I'll go a little bit into what this series is all about. So the Telly Awards honors excellence in video and television across all screens. We've been doing it since 1979, and we accept work across branded content, social video, shows and series, television, and this year we added animation and film and shorts last year. So we're accepting entries through 2 weeks, April 17th. So if you're making any of that kind of work, you can contact me or my team about how to actually get it considered for this season. But part of what we do each season is these conversation series where you connect more deeply with industry leaders about some of the main issues going on across all the verticals that we accept work in. And so today I am super excited. We will be joined by the founder and CEO of MGX Creative. They are doing the front live innovative work of those entertainment first digital shows. And Karam Gill is here
Hello,
with
hello.
you. How you doing?
Good to see you. How you
You
doing?
too. So, Karam, not everyone is everyone is familiar with brand first digital shows, but they're probably not familiar at how many amazing ones you have made. So you've been, 30 Forbes 30 under 30, Adweek Creative's top 100, documentary filmmakers to watch. Tell us a little bit about you and your sort of approach to building the future of branded digital series and branded storytelling, and how you come to it.
For sure. Yeah, it's been a cool journey. MGX has been around for this is year 10. So we've been doing it for a minute. And I think it's an interesting time where, our approach is really rooted in helping brands, go from just being traditional advertisers that are making 30-second spots that honestly just a lot of times get scrolled by. And really transforming them into serialized storytellers with content franchises and actual properties, that we partner with them on to build out that integrate not just creators, but talent across the entire spectrum. And really kind of the storytelling and the actual stories, allow these brands to have legs and live a little bit longer than just
Yeah.
simply an advertisement. So we've been doing it for a while. We also have a pretty robust film and television division that's done everything from HBO films to Amazon to Hulu, all that good stuff. So we bring a lot of that to the branded world as well, which is 10 plus years of real storytelling, like real storytelling chops. So it's
Yeah.
been a journey. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things we like to sort of frame this series with is this question of what makes you original. So this season theme this year is capture the original. So like in this wild world of branded digital content, what do you think really makes MGX Creative stand out? What sort of is your hook to it all?
Yeah, I think when you look at the ecosystem of companies working with brands, it's a really interesting time right now where a lot of the traditional commercial companies they haven't done a lot of or much proper long form storytelling in the film and TV world, and I think that's what really separates us. Where it's for the past 10 years, really since I was 21 or even younger, we've been doing some of the biggest, music and cultural docs in the world, whether that's G-Funk or Tekashi 6ix9ine series, or the Hulu doc series, or a little baby doc on Amazon, or we just had a film come out on HBO a few months ago. So what MGX brings to the table is a company that truly understands storytelling. So when a brand wants to integrate their motives or their thematic integrations or things that they feel are important into storytelling, it's really second nature to us, because it's really easy, because we are the storytelling chops are really there, and that goes across the whole team. Everyone at
Cool.
MGX is really rooted in that.
And it's such a growing niche. I mean, it's like the
Sure.
way, it's the direction we're moving. So let's watch a little of like your reel, sort of showing us like an overview of the type of work you've done, and then we'll dig into how you do what you do.
Cool.
It's Coachella. Everyone needs to give it their all.
We came to Coachella Sunday to see your show.
As culinary producer of The Bear, I am always looking for inspiration.
So good.
Brand new XH2S. Boom.
Welcome to the Drop Weekly.
Don't stop. Really, don't stop.
We have to understand things are beginning to change.
Every day, something unbelievable was happening.
You have to get better. That's just how this shit works.
When it's different, they just don't get it.
The ingredients don't come with instructions. You just gotta know how to put that shit together.
It's state-of-the-art, high-tech.
We all have a choice to define the future of this industry.
And now we're entering the next era. Are you ready for something new?
Awesome. I mean, so many faces that are obviously recognizable in that, so many brands that are obviously recognizable in that, so many platforms that were recognizable in that. I think my first question for you is, how do you make that evolution? So like, you've made television series, you've made documentary films. What's the difference between that work and then a branded digital series? Is it the same? Are the timelines faster? Is the creative vision different? Is it more difficult to work with brands versus like independents? There's so many layers, but like, what is the sort of your baseline difference here when we're talking about the branded work versus your, like the traditional roots as a director or a film producer?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think, you know, in the film and TV world, a lot of the film and TV stuff we do is you know, either commissioned by a major network or streamer, or it's made independently and then sold to a network or streamer. So oftentimes, you know, you're making the story truly from just whatever that story is, right? There isn't an agenda of like, hey, well, we're, you know, X, Y, and Z brand, T-Mobile, and we want to show, for example, how fans, you know, we service fans, and that's a big ethos for us. So the storytelling, I think, is a little bit more. There's no agendas woven into it. When you're working with brands, and agendas is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually an interesting challenge.
You clarify,
yeah, for sure. I think when you're working with brands, you know, you're telling that original story, but what you're also doing is you're weaving in an additional narrative, right? So you have your primary narrative, which is the actual story itself. But then when you're working with a brand, you have to remember that that narrative needs to remain authentic and true. But you also have to serve a couple other narratives. And I think that is a really interesting challenge, where it's how do you allow these brands to show up organically in a meaningful way that doesn't feel cringe, that feels cool, but still, you know, has an authentic story and is entertaining for entertainment first. And so that's actually why we love it, because it's such a cool challenge, right? To work with these brands, because every single brand has a different ethos. They have a different agenda. They have a different, you know, advertising goal, you know, and the stories oftentimes are, how do you find those in those pockets and those ways to have that show up in a story that's still entertaining? And it's really a challenge of, you know, it's a challenge that's shaping the future of all media and the entire entertainment landscape. And it's one that, you know, we absolutely love and have had, you know, a lot of success doing.
Are timelines shifting? Are the timelines different? Like when you're talking about a television show for Showtime or a limited series, I mean, it's a digital series for the branded stuff. So like, are you operating at a faster pace? Are there different types of stories that are being asked for? I mean, yeah,
no, that's a good question too. I think the timelines all vary. Like we have, you know, some of the work we do at Coachella, for example, is a very quick timeline, because you know, we want that to come out as soon as we can after the festival. Some of the stuff with Spotify is a quick turn as well. But I think, you know, on the film side, you often have a little bit more lead time, because film and television traditionally is just a much slower moving ship. And I think you know, even just the advertising of film and television starts a little earlier. Like the timelines tend to be longer. You have more time with film and TV, but that's what also makes the digital world so exciting, is that you can get in and get out and make something amazing and really be challenged by this you know, constrained timeline in a way.
Yeah. So you've been doing, you know, as a filmmaker and a director, you've been doing this work for a while. Now you're running a major company. I mean, tell me a bit about how MGX has grown, how you have sort of shifted hats from being a director or a younger oriented artist, I assume, I'm not actually sure where your roots are, to like, how many folks do you have on staff, sort of like RFPs and all this stuff? Like, how is that bridged as you build business?
It's been awesome. I mean, I don't know how many people know my backstory, but you know, the first film and really the launch of MGX was when I started that first film at 19 or 20, and MGX was originally founded as a separate entity that was rebranded to MGX when I was in college. So that's over 10 years ago, roughly 10 years ago. Guess I'm giving my age now. But that our first film, G-Funk, which is the story of Snoop Dogg, Nate Dogg, Warren G, that premiered at South by Southwest when we were, you know, 20, 21 years old. So like, yeah, it was crazy.
You were like the youngest at South by or something at that point.
Yeah, it was a wild time, and that really launched the business. And I think everyone was like, who are these children, you know, making big actual, you know, film and television projects? I mean, we cut it in a college dorm room. Andrew, not on, but Andrew's front of MGX. We cut it in his dorm room. Anyway, so long story short, you know, once that happened, I think all the eyeballs went to like, who are these guys? What are they doing? You know, we started working with Marshmello, helped build that YouTube from 25,000 all the way to 50 million in 4 years. Did the weekly cooking show every single week, a gaming show.
Okay, time out though. That is like commitment, vision, it's marketing, and it's like you had that early then. Sort of what you like the layers.
Yeah, and we were just, it's funny because early on we were like, oh man, you know, the industry was like, whoever's doing film and TV is like, that's the cream of the crop. Like you were almost a little insecure about how much we were doing in the digital series space. And it's so funny how that's come full circle, where it's like what we've been doing for 10 years with not just creators, but with brands. I mean, we work with all the major brands on very, you know, repeatable format initiative projects. And what we've been doing it for 10 years, and now it's funny, it's coming full circle, and the entire industry is trying to move there. These older film and television companies are trying to move there, and we've just been doing it for so long. So it's it's exciting. It's like the most exciting time for us as a company, you know, we've ever had, and it's great. Yeah.
Okay, so do you feel like you are wearing a different hat though, or was building like Marshmello's YouTube channel actually what you're doing now? You're just like more seasoned at it, like.
I think for me personally, yeah, like I think my role has gone, you know, obviously running the company day to day is, you know, it's a lot more executive level duties and things like that. But one thing about MGX, which will always be there, and it has always been there, is we don't take on 900 million projects a year. So, you know, my fingerprints as a filmmaker and as an artist and as a creative are really across. Sometimes they're, you know, they're more stamped on things. Sometimes it's a little bit lighter, but the aesthetic of MGX and what we do, it always, you can look at any project we do, you know, my fingerprints are on it, our core team's fingerprints are on it. And so the integrity of the work that we do is always there, you know?
Okay, cool. So that's maintained. You have like 20, how many people are on staff? Like how big have you got?
From a full-time perspective, we'll be at just under 25, probably by the end of April. We're close to that number right now. But yeah, it's growing. We've had, you know, it's cool. Yeah.
And so in terms of like what you're doing now, which is primarily, I think, the branded digital series orientation, right? Sort of brand storytelling in serialized format. How are you building those out? Like, is there a successful format you've landed on? Is it different for sports versus cooking versus fashion? Or is there sort of this like repeatable structure you kind of know? And if not, how do you figure it out?
It is the most entrepreneurial, like case by case. Like when you think about, just to sum it up, when you think about
seriously, case by case, like
because when you think in a really exciting way, right? Like when you think about film and television, there's really two routes to getting something made. You either taking it immediately to a streamer who's going to give you a deal to buy it, or you make it independently and sell it. In the branded digital series world, there are tons of different avenues. For example, you can partner with, and we do all of these, right? Some are you partner with a creator or an IP holder originally, and you partner on that from the beginning, you develop it, and then you take it to brands for financing. Some stuff brands will come to us and say, hey, we want to show up in live music, we want to show up in cooking, we want to do this, we've seen what you guys have done, can you help us develop it? Other instances are like true kind of RFP situations where it's like, hey, the brand's already developing this and you're really servicing it, which is more commercial servicing. So there's so many different avenues in which a branded digital series gets made. But the one thing I would say that's super exciting is, while there's so much pessimism right now, I think in Hollywood and media and entertainment in some ways, because of a lot of consolidation, et cetera, our perspective is that it's actually the most exciting time because there's more financiers than ever before now that brands are playing in this arena.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we just had a massive show that'll be announced in a few weeks, just get financed. It's a digital series, and like that's not something that would necessarily fit the mold of like a Netflix or a Hulu or something, but it would for a brand, you know? So there's actually more opportunities to get stories made and shows made than ever before.
I agree with that statement. In terms of digital, like I think because basically there's an opening of a balloon there.
For sure.
Brands are filling gaps, but then also there's just more avenues for where it can go. And because the quality has reached a similar quality to television, I mean, YouTube shows are like as good at these, better, and there's more room for iteration. And so it's like, that is the right circumstances for this model being successful. The question is, but can you get paid for it? You know, is it a business model that works? I mean, so because you're dealing, one of the differences and maybe downsides or upsides, I'll ask you, of doing like, you know, a television show versus a digital series is you kind of hand it off on the television show and you're not really responsible for like if people see it. Do you like, but I feel like there's more like you're kind of selling in the fact that it will get impressions if it's digital. There's sort of this marketing tie-in fundamentally. Are you responsible for that? Do you help people set up their channels or do you just do the creative at this point? Like how much part of that success level project, or should one be if they're trying to develop this work?
I do think so. I think that's one of the unique offerings of MGX, right? Where it's like, you know, we're not just a service company that people can come to, and obviously we can do all that. We can make it soup to nuts. We have edit bays, we have the whole nine. But the strategy and the brand sales and the strategic partnerships and how we're rolling things out, like that all comes with working with MGX. And I think like it is something that people that are stepping into this world should be thinking about, where it's not just a service kind of arena to play in. If you are building branded digital series shows, you know, you need to be thinking about what is your clipping strategy, you know, how are you showing up, you know, how are you collabing these different things, what's the rollout of these different episodes, because so much of the success actually comes from the strategy. And that's an arena that we've been playing in for a while. So to answer your question, I mean, we think about a lot of that, and it is funny because when you deliver a show to Netflix, you know, you shake hands and Netflix takes it from there. They have a robust marketing department. They have an amazing, you know, they're great at what they do. But in this arena, and that's why I'm saying it's more entrepreneurial and there's more avenues to have, you know, just more fingerprints on stuff. You really do have a say in how things roll out, how they roll out, you know, those types of things. So it's exciting.
So on that level, so you've given a bit of insight in like the different ways that you could go about developing it, right? With the creator, then to the brand, work with the brand from the development up, whatever. So in terms of like that strategy, the role, is there sort of tried and true mechanisms you feel like anyone who's doing a branded digital series should definitely, I mean, you just said a few of them, like the clip strategy, but like, what are some of the things that you definitely just need to be including in your brain structure if you're going to be developing this stuff?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lot of different things and what type of arena you're playing in. I think even when you're launching that series, like, are you launching at a time where it's in the zeitgeist, it's in the digital ecosystem, it's in people's algorithms. You know, if you're launching a football show, you know, launching it around, you know, the start of the NFL season or launching it around, you know, the Super Bowl or something is a great idea. So you're kind of the same way, I guess, film and TV is thinking about lining up their release calendars. You are thinking about that a lot with digital properties. And I think frequency is really important. If you're building a recurring property or franchise, what you can't do is, you know, you drop one thing and then 2 weeks later you drop another thing and then you're consistent for 3 weeks and then 5 weeks later you drop something else. What people want in the digital world is you're really programming habit. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about. And it's something that we really apply and comes all the way back to how we produce the shows. Like, if we know a creator or talent or brand or whatever it is only has a certain amount of time, we build production models from the beginning to block shoot and to have stuff in the can and to make sure
Right.
that our frequency doesn't drop, because that's how you build audience habit, you know?
Do you find that more of are the contracts like recurring, like you will work with, or is it like series oriented, like give us one and you're done? Like what is sort of the model for how clients work with this or brands themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we're blessed to do this. I think it's a testament, honestly, to beyond me, just the whole MGX team and the great work that everyone does. But majority of our clients are at least 5, 6, 7 year clients that we've
Stop
worked
it.
with. Yeah,
Stop it.
yeah, it's
That's
crazy. Yeah,
amazing. And
yeah,
so
like
they've bought in, they get it, and they're
yeah,
like, we're doing this. That is
like food.
actually a very strategic like statement there that like brands
Yeah,
are making these choices to fund this in some
for
long-term
sure.
capacity. Like that's the best marker I can hear of that. Yeah.
100%. I mean, Fujifilm, to give you an example, we've been working with them for basically, since the inception for around 9 years, and we've launched multiple series, multiple properties. And I think,
Interesting.
and it's interesting because things always change, like marketing priorities, right? Like, for example, there was a priority.
That's why I'm impressed by
Yeah.
that, because that's like a
And
lock-in
we
that
just evolve
doesn't,
with them.
yeah.
Yeah. We
Wait,
build it. Yeah.
okay.
Sorry,
That's
go ahead.
No, it's just
Yeah.
impressive to think about. So what are the stakeholders, like if you are going to be launching a branded digital series, like, or wanting to enter this space and be successful, you're working with multiple stakeholders then on the brand side. It's
Of
not like,
course.
yeah, are you pretty part of the process with them? Like what is the best working relationship for this to happen? I understand people are different.
Mhm.
A T-Mobile versus a Fujifilm versus a Coachella might want different things, but is there sort of a through line of how these best work out
Yeah.
in terms of the relationship? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, we work with agencies sometimes that brands have that serve as the intermediary because, they have so much great context on just additional initiatives. A lot of the times, and I would say, probably the majority of the times, we work directly with the brands themselves. So like Fujifilm, we are their creative studio. We work with them, across everything. And we work directly with those executives as marketing priorities change, that, new series ideas come up. We ideate, we kick the ball around, we meet regularly with them in New York and LA, et cetera. But something like Coachella, my really good friends are over there doing an amazing job building out just the content strategy with Kyle and Ike and just the whole gang. And for them, we work directly with them. And then when we go out and we develop some of our original shows together, and then we'll go out and find brands, and then those brands will work directly with the brand, or the brand will have an agency they want us to work with. But we work directly with Coachella, and then depending on the brand that comes in, they have their own way of working, and we just mold to it. Cool. So we're very flexible. Yeah, there's different ways that it all kind of happens.
Also, tell us a bit about sort of the different types of verticals. So, I mean, because it's like on your real release, it was like cooking, sports, fashion. Do you feel like you have lanes that you're in, or that sort of, I mean, those are cultural lifestyle orientation series? Is that like what does well as a branded digital series, or are you seeing like very esoteric things like book reviews doing well as a digital series? Like, what's the space look like for success, right? For the types of stories?
And it depends on the brand. Like some brands do really well, in music and lifestyle, and others do really well in vodcast formats. And I think what's so cool about what we do is we sit across all of it. Like we do some amazing work in long form conversational formats, like the work we do with Spotify. We do great in vertical formats. Also, some of the work that we do with them, which is becoming really popular, is a lot of like vertical, content and formats. But then there's also premium docu stuff. Like that's, Arrival, which is one of the series that we do with Coachella, is a show that is really like, it feels like a Netflix show. It feels super premium. It's limited. It's not a recurring thing, but it is a franchise that happens season by season. So we're on season 2 right now. And yeah, they're all different, everything's depending on what the priorities are of the brands and the IP holders and all that good stuff.
Okay, so since you are sitting on the inside of like how this field is developing, though, I mean, everyone is talking about brand storytelling is happening. That's a fact. You have 5-year contracts sitting around that. That's real. But in terms of like the premium, and I hear you saying it depends by brand, but like the vertical thing, everyone's like, it's going to be. I'm asking, like, are there certain styles of branded digital shows you see are on an uptick that you feel like, oh, we should actually maybe get in that, or like that you're being asked for less premium? Like, I'm curious sort of where the
It's a
push
great
is
question.
there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's platform dependent. So, for example, one of the things that we're seeing and that we're really doubling down on is like the stuff that we create that's YouTube native and that's for specifically YouTube primary release strategy. Those types of shows and those types of content, they need to take a viewer on a journey. Whereas, like, it needs to, instead of it being like, and this is not something we've created, but just an example, instead of it being, here's the Lady Gaga mini doc, it's more of like, why is Lady Gaga the greatest fashionista in music? Like,
Right.
The way that the content is structured, and it can be
Okay.
long form still, it has to feel like the user is going on a journey versus the user is simply consuming. So each platform, and that's just really one for an insight for YouTube, for example, but every platform has its own set of things that work. And what we specialize in is really working with brands to make sure we're not just making cookie cutter content or everything's premium, because not everything needs to be premium, you know, like some things need to be a little bit rougher, some things need to take you on a journey, and we really work on crafting that per platform and per brand.
That is very insightful. Like the YouTube thing. I mean, I've heard that like YouTube can still be like 10 minutes, like it's fine, it works on YouTube. So, but the story format, like follow something, is the brain that's still like catching people.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I mean, what I see on the platforms is more like almost like narrative original on like Instagram, like series that are just like but it's like on Instagram and they're just like a minute long. But it's like characters and which is different than I think what I think used to be working on the platform. But one part of what you just said reminded me of, I think, a deeper question for you all, because I mean, when you are working with brands, there is an ask, there's a narrative, and we're at this point in our own content saturation on Earth where like we can spot an ad a million miles away and we're like, no, bye. So, and you come from a very like authentically placed space in culture, like actually navigating cultural spaces. So how do you maintain the line, like with a brand ask? Is it who you choose to work with? Is it like, do you say no to stories if you feel they'll be like, like exploitive of like the communities that you feel that you should remain authentic to as a director? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're like I said, we're very picky with the projects we take on from the onset, for sure. But one thing that we do is we never say no to any brand request ever. And I think that's like one of the founding
figure out.
That's one of the founding things that, you know, is one of the core principles actually at MGX, is like we just don't say no to any branded request ever. And it might sound ridiculous to say that, but what we really pride ourselves on is like finding innovative solutions for those same branded goals to show up. Because sometimes brands will come and they say, hey, it's really critical that we see just simple stuff, the product in the first 3 seconds. That's obviously always very easy to do. That's not a problem. But sometimes the ask is a little bit more like, hey, it's really important that this thematic narrative, this point about how we are the ultimate, you know, telecommunications provider, or we're the ultimate hotel, or whatever there is for live music, comes through in this piece. You know, if we're interviewing a massive celebrity or creator, they're probably not going to say that directly, but there's ways and there's creative ways to integrate these narratives and these things into into shows. So like a great example is the work we did with T-Mobile last year, where, and I think the brand retention score was really, really high on that. Was they wanted to show up as, you know, connecting fans to their favorite moments. So we built a custom element of the story where the biggest artists at Coachella, when they get off, these little voice messages pop up, and they're diehard fans from around the world connected through T-Mobile that are leaving them voice memos. So it didn't affect the narrative necessarily, but it still achieved what the brand wanted.
They're fun. Yeah, they're fun, like sort of puzzles to figure out. I think
I love it. Yeah, we love it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I mean, tell me. So Coachella's coming up. Tell me about your collaboration with Coachella last year. What can we expect here? What's exciting? What are you working on that's exciting that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, we have some big announcements coming up soon, which are I guess announcements for a reason that I can't spoil them. But We are working with Coachella again, of course. We have an amazing partnership with them. We're going on year 2. We're doing a lot of really exciting stuff. And a big shout out to the original content team over there. I think they're absolutely brilliant and just so creative and just do such a great job of curation as well. So we're doing that, and that's super exciting. We also, are just doing a variety of different shows and culture that I think are really cool. And I think television is becoming digital. The lines are being blurred, and I think the formats are also flexible. You don't have to not everything has to be a 30-minute show. Not everything has to be an hour,
Yeah, that's true, because it's totally I mean, it's natural, but it's not.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so that's what excites us the most, is playing with format, like not everything has to be cookie cutter anymore.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to, or like, I don't know.
No, I think we covered a lot. I mean, I think open up for questions.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. I think the one thing I struggle with, or that I find interesting, is the micro content stuff. So like, everyone's like, oh yeah, we need vertical format, everything, which actually like isn't new. Like, we've had vertical format video for a long time. And so when I'm coming up with like categories for the tells, I'm like, are we really going to offer a category for vertical? It just seems old. But it's not just that it's vertical, it's that it's like entire series being generated and greenlit in the vertical format. But I don't know if that makes them that different from a 16 by. Do you think it does? Like, if you're shooting a vertical series, do you feel like actually you're crafting it differently than a traditional? If we're going to say this is like the next thing, like, is it going to be different or is it not?
I think the frame size, that to me doesn't matter if it's wide or vertical, because I think the frame size is just really, the essence of how it's captured. But I think what vertical is at its core is it's compressed storytelling. So you're taking you know what I mean? Yeah, you're taking a story that might unfold over 5 minutes, 30 minutes, and you're essentially compressing it and chopping it up. So I think what it requires is a team that really understands the nuts and bolts of how to arc a story, how to build exposition, how to drive action, how to climax something, how to have rising action and resolution, and how to structure all that and then chop it up so that you have hooks and you have people coming back. So I think it's less about the size of the frame and it's more about the construction of the actual narrative. If that
and I think the term micro content actually is getting at that better, because that's like the 1 minute episodes that are building to something. And so like, can you do it in the short time frame, not necessarily the visual format that has traditionally aligned with shorter time frames. So
everyone gets hung up on the framing, and it's not, to me, it's not.
It's not that.
It's more than that.
Cool. Okay. Well, so that might actually answer one of the questions. Yes, Tom's. Let's do Leo's question. Are there any non-negotiables that you ask for in all projects before you agree to work on it?
Non-negotiable. That's a great question. I don't know. Good people. That's probably a non-negotiable. I think there's just, this, at the end of the day, there's too many egos in this whole world, and I think a lot of it comes from just proximity to visibility and celebrity and all that good stuff. So one thing that's just important for us is it's actually, that's probably the only non-negotiable, is we just don't deal with people who have huge egos and are rude or any of that stuff. So we really, it's just important that we're working with good people and everyone treats each other with respect, and that's a big foundation of how we do things, whether that's the PA or it's the executive producer. Everyone should really just, we're making content, we're not saving lives,
Yeah. And I think, but it sounds not necessarily, people say that and then you can think it's not concrete, but actually the more creative studios I talk to that start with that, it's real. Like, it's like, no, we really don't work with people who aren't good people, because, and that is a very defining statement, actually. I mean, you mentioned a few principles. You said also, we won't say no. Are there other like principles you guys sort of hold to?
Those are probably two of the bigger ones. I mean, we have a whole list of obviously internal guiding principles that drive the company, but yeah, we don't say no. We always try to find a solution, and we honestly pretty much always find a solution in some capacity. And then, I think just making sure that, like, at the end of the day, with all these projects you do, you end up working with partners, with internal teams, with crew for really extended periods of time, late nights, early mornings, lots of times you're traveling. Like, you want to be working with people that you like, that are, that you treat well, and that, you treat you well. And I think that's just a big part of how we do things,
All right. There was another question from Yeah, so this is, to me, this is actually more about like your processing sort of pipeline for speed. So your reel was 16:9, but you know, it could be one by one or vertical. How do you work the formatting? I think when you're producing digital series, like there's always this like pressure to have multiple deliverables, multiple types of assets. Is that like, do you have like, how do you all like structure yourself for speed in general with all of this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have the reel in obviously all, 16:9, 9:16, all variety of sizes. But in terms of the way we think about just formatting for platform, the framing is easy because you can just take those off when you're filming and capturing it and center punch people and all that good stuff. What we really think about is where is this content living? Like, what is the actual strategy going in? And we really try to push our partners to think that way, because I think that impacts things differently. Like when we deliver a suite of assets, we're not just doing cut downs, because that's not really like everyone can do that. Like we really think, okay, cool, this hero's living on YouTube. All right, cool. This is how it's gonna work. This is some of the nuanced changes we're gonna make. Oh, these 8 things are gonna be rolled out on TikTok. Okay, cool. They're going to feel a little bit rougher like this, and they're going to be like this, and whatever that is. Oh, this is going to live on IG, or this is going to live on, embedded in a Twitch stream. Like we really think about what that is, and the sizing is one component, but the actual little details of how the videos start, and like if it's on Instagram, maybe it starts with a little like rough shake so it doesn't feel so produced. Like there's little things that we do that are beyond just the framing itself.
Yeah, which are all insightful based on platform.
For
and
sure.
I think my sort of riff off that one is historically it has always been like, what's the cut down? And so you're saying like reframe that up front to understand. But are you providing multiple versions of the same story?
Oh yeah.
Are you shooting 3 different stories sort of for the 3 different platforms, or are you shooting them all at the same time? Do you have different crew? Like
No, we shoot it all at the same time. But one thing that's unique about MGX is we have a pretty sizable post-production department that's headed up by Harrison, who's incredible as our head of post. And we have, in-house editors that are amazing, just a robust post staff. So when we deliver to clients, we're not just delivering cut downs of the same trailer in different sizes. Like it's that obviously, but then there's also like, okay, cool, we're going to seed this thing here for press, and we're going to cut this out here for this. And we build like a real rollout suite. And I think that's what helps these digital series do really great numbers. And I think some of the stuff we mentioned in terms of the growth over the years has been because everything's bespoke. It's not just a lazy, like, here's the cut and here's the cut downs.
Cool.
It's like, we really think of things that way.
Cool. A lot of the questions we've actually covered. I think people are coming towards the end, but so do you ever pitch series you developed independently from a brand, or do you always stick with the brand first? You mentioned a little bit about like how they are developed, but straight independently. Yeah. I don't know if you really talked about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we do. A great example of that is the work that we do with Coachella, for example. That's the original IP that we developed with Coachella. That is, a show, one of the shows was Arrival, that we then, take out for brand financing. So we do some stuff like that. There's also other things that brands have, very clear vision on, and the executives have worked to solve a lot of problems internally, and they're just looking for the right partner on, which they'll come to us on, where we'll more so service those and really try to 2.0 it and add our expertise and knowledge and all that. So yeah, we definitely do it both ways. I feel like a lot more of the stuff we're doing, actually I wouldn't say a lot, I think it's probably 50-50, but a lot of the stuff we are doing is building the shows, building the creative, and then going to brands, and also strategically doing it in a way where building shows with different integrations in mind. So building a show that starts with someone calling a friend and knowing that there's probably 5 or 6 telecommunications providers and tech companies that would be great for sponsoring a segment like that. So like building the show with brand integrations in mind is also something that we do.
Cool. All right, we have 2 more questions. From Natalie, what can you tell us about MGX's org chart? Are your teams led by a creative director with producers executing, or do you producers each execute their own project? And just piggybacking off that, there's like this whole evolution of like digital showrunners as like a very specific niche. Like, is there a different org chart really for like a digital branded series versus like more traditional ones you've been in?
For sure. That's such a great question. So the way we're set up, and it's probably very unique compared to a lot of companies. In the traditional commercial world, the way companies are set up is they have, head of production, and they have a variety of EPs that sit across things, and then they have a roster of directors, and they bring those directors in to execute job by job, which is great for commercial projects that are just in and out 30-second ads or short form ads or short form initiatives. But things that are, you know, true digital series that are somewhere in between film and TV, but somewhere in between commercial, you can't really operate that model because it doesn't really work. So the way we work is, obviously I run the company. Andrew Primavera, who's an incredible, you know, creative force that's really, you know, been at MGX since day one. He's the head of content, so he really sits across the entire ecosystem. So in the television world, or the traditional television world, that would be like a head of current. So he sits across that, and then we obviously have our head of production. We have a development team. We have an additional creative team of different creatives that can do a variety of different things. Sometimes they're editors, or on staff we have some editors. We have some people who are great in the field producing, etc. Then we have our post team. So to answer this question overall, they're led by a creative lead. I wouldn't necessarily have a true creative producer or a creative director, because sometimes it's different. Some shows just need a creative lead, but they do need a director. Some shows don't need a traditional director, but they need a, you know, proper creative showrunner. So we, you know, we call people creatives essentially. It's more of a hybrid term. And then obviously we have the we have production support on every single project as well. So it varies, but it's definitely not the traditional commercial model, and it's also not the traditional TV model. It's something that we've actually built ourselves over the last 10 years that has just worked really well in making sure that we're managing everything soup to nuts, you know?
Cool. I have one last question, because I think it's sort of future forward. It's about the music industry. So like, where do you see music content going as the big streamers are trying to get involved? But for me, it's more like, I also saw you were doing like live event stuff. Like, I'm curious how you see like sort of music and live experiences like evolving and or incorporating any of the kind of world you're building, and if there's sort of like a next phase beyond branded digital series, perhaps, that you're sort of seeing inklings of.
This is a great question. I think music content in general is interesting, right? Because there's so many rights holders, and I think there's a little bit of limitations on what you can do and what you can't do. But I think overall, I think the way where music is going is, you know, the $1 million music video era is gone, you know, where Michel Gondry is directing stuff, and it's these incredibly artistic, that's just, unfortunately, is an amazing time, or it's just not here anymore. I think music content is going to a place where the musician itself is, they're a personality. And I think a lot of people fans love musicians beyond just the music now. It's a lot of what they stand for, their personality, what they do, people are buying into a musician based on everything around the music. So I think the music content world is going in a direction where artists are becoming their own platforms and creators and output, you know, individuals themselves. So like, and brands, so it's like, you know, you might be an amazing singer, and we're starting to see a lot of people coming to us like, hey, we want to create a cooking show because we love this specific singer, loves cooking, and that's like their thing.
I've seen that crossover a lot, actually. We're like, but then it works. Sports too, like sports and food. You're like, what? But then, okay, because it's the personality and then the sort of format that.
So musicians are becoming personalities and like where they want to build digital ecosystems. And I think we all know, you know, it's not easy being a musician and making money just off streaming. I mean, and even touring. So it's like, what's interesting is all these artists are looking at companies like MGX that have done this before with so many different brands and individuals and celebrities. How can we build a digital ecosystem? And how you build a digital ecosystem is through recurring formats, franchises, and series, which is, once again, what we really do.
Yeah. Well, on that note, thank you for a very illuminating conversation. I thoroughly learned about process, product, sort of nuts and bolts, vision, roots, all of it. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us and everyone here. I mean, the Tellies is made of the makers, right? It's like the producers, the post houses, the musicians, the streamers, it's all the people doing it from the inside out. And so being able to see bird's eye view, like how your world is shifting, I think is useful across multiple of the verticals that everyone here touches. And thanks. And for everyone out there, if you are making any of this kind of work, we're open for like 2 more weeks, maybe April 17th. So get it in. I know you guys have some awesome stuff this year. I can't wait to see it go through our judging process. So very exciting across the board. And when are we supposed to stay tuned for like your big announcements? Where should we like?
Next few weeks, I think by the end of April, we'll have a couple big ones coming out.
All right, sweet. So we'll
Sick
send
stuff.
people out like your website or like something that they can like follow
sure.
or track if they want to, or maybe your social handles and stuff like that.
Yeah, my social handles are at Carm or mgxcreative.com or any of that good stuff. I'm sure you can find us with a quick little Google search.
Awesome.
So
And
appreciate
actually,
the time.
yeah, and because this was live on LinkedIn, if people do have comments that sort of happen afterwards, you and I can both maybe jump in for a minute and just field anything, like check it
Of
out
course.
tomorrow in case there's sort of an ongoing conversation that you might have insight on, but I'll do the same. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the time. Good to see you,
Talk to you
Amanda.
later. Yeah, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.